In this tutorial, we will learn what is Azure App Service, how to create web app in Azure App Service, how to deploy code using VS Code, how to deploy code via Deployment Center, and finally, how to containerize the web app. Azure App Service is a fully managed web application hosting platform. This platform as a service offered by Azure allows you to focus on designing and building your app while Azure takes care of meeting all the rigorous enterprise-grade performance, security, and compliance requirements. Azure App Service is an HTTP-based service that you can use for hosting web application, REST APIs, or mobile backends. Azure App Service supports most of the commonly used languages like .NET, .NET Core, Java, Node.js, Ruby, PHP, and Python. Azure App Service can host applications on both Windows and Linux operating systems. Apps hosted in Azure App Service are secure, highly available, and can scale up or out either manually or automatically. Now let's jump onto the Azure portal and create web app in Azure App Service. Okay, we are now on the Azure portal homepage. You can see that there's a leading button which says create a resource, and that's the one you will be clicking to create any sort of resource in Azure. Okay, so let's click create a resource button to create a web app. In search marketplace search box, type in web app. Select the web app from the result and hit create. Okay, we are now navigated to the create web app wizard. In this wizard, you will first provide the appropriate subscription. So in my case, I only have one subscription, which is a pay as you go. And your organization, you may have multiple subscriptions, so you can select the appropriate one that you need. Okay, now select the resource group. If you are practicing, it is always better to create new resource group and create all the required resources into it. And once you are done practicing, you can just go and delete the resource group. It will help you save unnecessary cost that you might incur in case you forget to delete some resources during your cleanup activity. So let's create a new resource group. Create new. My practice RG. Okay. Now provide the app name here. Since app names are global, you have to provide a unique app name. So I'll provide net core app. Okay, as you can see, somebody has already taken this app name. So what I'll do, I'll add some hyphens to it. Yeah, this looks like it is available. Now choose what you want to publish, whether you want to publish code or a Docker container. So we will choose code here. We'll keep it as it is. We won't change it. Next, you have to choose appropriate runtime stack. Since we are deploying a .NET Core app, we'll select .NET Core 3.1 here. Next, you have to select the operating system. We will go with the Linux here. Then select the region. We'll select Central India here. Next, you have to select the app service plan. As you can see, a default selected app service plan has new prefixed with the app service plan name, which means there is no app service plan available at the moment, and hence Azure is creating one for you. Next, you have to select the SKU and sizing. So let's select the one that is suitable to us. We'll go with the standard plan. B1, it is providing 100 total ACUs, Azure Computing Units, 1.75 GB of memory, and A series compute equivalent to 946.67 INRs per month estimated. Hit apply. Next, we'll skip this section for now. We'll come back to it when we look into the deployment of our app. Next, we'll skip this section also for now. We'll come back to it when we'll look into monitoring the app. Okay. Tags are name value pairs which enables you to categorize all the resources that you create and then view the consolidated billing by applying these same tags to multiple resources and resource groups. So we are not creating any tag at the moment. So let's hit review and create now. Azure will validate all the information that we provided, and once the validation is successful, you can hit create to create the resource. Okay, our web app is now created. Let's see how we can publish our code now. In this section, we will see how we can deploy code to the web app in Azure App Service using VS Code. This is a basic ASP.NET Core MVC web app that we will now deploy to the web app that we created in Azure App Service. To deploy the web app, we will require Azure account and Azure App Service extensions of the VS Code installed. Since I already have it installed, we will skip that step now. Let's now navigate to the Azure App Service extension. So this is the Azure App Service extension of VS Code. Hit sign in. Yeah, it says you are signed in now and can close this page. Okay, you can see your subscription now, which means we have successfully signed in to Azure account. If you expand the subscription here, you will see the web app that we just created in Azure App Service. To deploy our code to the web app, we will use this up arrow here. You can see the tooltip which says deploy to web app. We'll now hit this button. Now select the name of the app where we want to deploy the code and hit deploy. It has now started deploying our code. Code is now successfully deployed. Let's now try and browse the web app by hitting this browse website button. Yeah. Okay, let's now try to deploy our code via deployment center in Azure App Service. Select the web app where we want to deploy the code. And the deployment section, hit deployment center. Select GitHub as resource. Now change the provider to app service build service. Authorize Azure to access GitHub account now. Select organization here, the repository that we need to deploy, and the branch. And hit save. Okay. Now whenever you commit the changes to your code, it will automatically get deployed to the web app. So let's try changing our code and see if it deploys it. Okay, now let's make some changes in our code. We'll just say that we'll get rid of these exclamations. ASP.NET Core 1.1. Let's commit these changes. Okay, our changes are now committed to the GitHub. Let's now go to the browser and see if the changes are reflected. Okay, our changes are successfully deployed now. In this section, we will see how we can containerize the web app. Please make sure you have Docker installed on your machine and have also installed the Docker extension of the VS Code. Let's now add Docker file to our app. Select Add Docker Files to Workspace. Select ASP.NET Core as an application platform. Select Linux as an operating system. Enter port number here. I'll enter 3000. Hit enter. Let's ignore the Docker Compose files for now. We now have a Docker file created. So it's time now to build Docker image. To build Docker image, we'll use command docker build -t is for tag, name of the image, and the tag. I'll use latest as the tag, and dot at the end. Dot at the end is mandatory because it sets the build context to the current working directory. And hit enter. Our Docker image is now ready. Let's try and run the Docker image. Docker run -d -p. -p is a switch which we use to map our local machine port with the port exposed by the Docker container. Here in this case, we expose port number 3000 from Docker container. So we'll map port 8080 from our local machine to port 3000 from the Docker container. Now enter the image name, netcore app, and the tag latest, and hit enter. Okay, your Docker container is now running. Let's see if you can see the application in the browser. Let's enter the URL localhost :8080. Hit enter. Yeah, your application is running in the container now. We will see how we can deploy the container to the web app in Azure App Service when we cover the tutorial on Azure Container Registry. Now that we have completed our tutorial, it's time to clean up the resources that we created in Azure. Okay, we are now in Azure portal homepage. So if you remember, we created this My Practice RG resource group for creating all our resources when creating the web app in Azure App Service. So let's open this resource group. Just click on this delete resource group. Type in the name of the resource group, My Practice RG, and hit delete. So this will delete everything that is there in the resource group and the resource group also. Okay, the resource group and all the resources within that resource group are now deleted. Okay, in this tutorial we have learned what is Azure App Service, how to deploy code to web app created in Azure App Service using VS Code as well as via Deployment Center, and We have also seen how to containerize the web app using Docker. Thank you for watching.